May I request everyone to take their seats so that we can start the proceedings? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have gathered here today to pay tribute to a colossus of a man. He was a visionary, a teacher, administrator, researcher, and in between everything else, he found time to practice ophthalmology. This giant of a man did not only build this institute, but also shaped practice of ophthalmology in India. He was a pioneering vitreoretinal surgeon, and he not only trained countless trainees, but not only trained them in ophthalmology, but also imparted life lessons in humility, excellence, and in discipline by setting a personal example. I was an outsider in this institute, having never been trained here per se, but he took a personal interest, which was not always pleasant, in refining my training. I was intimidated by him, but at the same time, I saw value in everything he asked me to do. If I have to say 3 words about him, which every one of us probably should emulate, they are attention to details, personal integrity, and commitment that patient always and always came first. I have, along with several of my colleagues and other students of his, have tried to follow these lessons to the best of our abilities. And I remain grateful for his association with him. With that, I now invite Dr. Prema Padmanabhan to come and deliver the welcome address.
Good evening, friends. It is said that a man never dies until the last person who remembers him still lives. This packed hall today endorses that statement. I'm sure my colleagues will agree with me that all of us have felt the presence of Dr. Badrinath more intensely this last 1 year than ever before. Whenever and wherever we have met, professionally or socially, formally or informally, physically or virtually, in groups large or small, we have always felt his presence. Nostalgia always takes us down that memory lane. And even as we regale each other with delectable anecdotes of yesteryears, and even as we chuckle over our brazen escapades with him at various times, we all feel a raw pain tugging at us from within. It is these memories which form a library for the soul of Sankara Nethralaya. It is said that mortals are but drops of water in an ocean. But some mortals, like Dr. Badrinath, were an ocean in a drop. An ocean so vast that it can barely be fathomed, let alone be described in totality. We knew him as Chief, a mentor who gave us shape, substance, and meaning to our lives. But he was more than that. Today we'll have the pleasure of listening to someone who knew him as a friend. Dr. Namperumalsamy, the Chairman Emeritus of the Arvind Eye Hospital Group. Similar to Dr. Badrinath in stature, both physically and metaphorically. Similarly toiled tirelessly, not just to build an institution, but to perfuse it with a value system that has sustained over decades and even generations. The legendary Dr. Swami, Dr. Namperumalsamy, Dr. G.N. Rao, the founder of L.V. Prasad Eye Institute, Dr. Badrinath, these are some of the pioneers whom history will always remember for having changed the ecosystem of eye care in this country. We are fortunate to have Dr. Namperumalsamy with us here today. So you have been Chief's guest for ever so many functions in the past, but today we have the honor of welcoming you as our chief guest. With equal warmth, I'd like to welcome Shri N. Ram of the Hindu group of publishers. Don't all of us have patients who are not happy with their treatment until they're able to read the Hindu newspaper every morning? He too has been the captain of a ship, and he too has known Dr. Badrinath for decades. I welcome you, sir. I welcome our well-wishers who continue to repose their faith in us. A special welcome to our ex-consultants, some of whom have been with Dr. Badrinath since day one. Several of our ex-staff members from various departments. Your presence bears testimony to the reverence you have carried with you for Dr. Badrinath wherever you went, and the love you have for your alma mater which brought you back. I welcome each one of you seated here, some of you who are half-seated or not even seated. Welcome you all for this collective Shraddhanjali, and may this be an occasion for us to rededicate ourselves to the principles and values that he stood for. Thank you.
May I now request Dr. Surendran to introduce our chief guest and guest of honor.
Respected dignitaries, it's a privilege to stand at this memorial dedicated to our beloved chief, founder Dr. S.S. Badrinath. In one word, I can say that he was a karma yogi, and he was an institution himself, as told by one of the senior politicians. So as we gather his memories to recall the contributions, it is only fitting that we honor two extraordinary individuals who have come here today. Dr. Namperumalsamy is the chairman Emeritus of the great Arvind Eye Hospitals, which is home for lots of patients, lakhs of patients who have been getting operated for cataracts. And he is basically a vitreoretinal surgeon. And I just recollect his connections with the hospital, Dr. Badrinath, and the institution. And he is from Thunga Nagaram, Madurai, which is also, I always have to visit two temples whenever I go to Madurai. One is the great institution, Arvind Eye Hospital. The second one is the Meenakshi Temple. So I'm sure that I think Namperumalsamy have been blessed by Goddess Meenakshi, and his friend Mr. Vaidyanathan also has just arrived with the. So this, coming back to Professor Namperumalsamy, you will be surprised to know that Dr. Namperumalsamy got trained in this, what they call as vitreous surgery. That is the retina, in front of retina there is a gel called as vitreous. And this gel removal was a big magic those days, that none of us could touch the vitreous. And it was Namperumalsamy who started the vitreous surgery in the country even before Dr. Badrinath. So it was, I think I could recollect, I was acting like a secretary in Vijay Hospital. Whenever I think we get a case of vitreous hemorrhage, even Bombay managing directors, you get from Delhi and all places for Dr. Badrinath. He was considered to be a top practitioner in 1977 when I joined him. So whenever I think we had a case of vitreous hemorrhage, since Dr. Badrinath was not trained in vitreous surgery that time, he was doing what they call as scleral buckling for retinal detachment. He was not touching the vitreous at all, which is a gel before the retina. So Professor Namperumalsamy's address, everything will be there. and I had to give it to the patient. He will tell, you send him to Namperumalsamy. He will come from Bombay to Chennai. In those days, no mobile connections, nothing. Then I will have to give him and then fix some guest house there in Madurai so that the patient is comfortable, and Dr. Badrinath will follow up with Dr. Namperumalsamy. So he is the first one to start. And I think nobody in the hall will know the history. Apart from that, one Dr. Samir Biswas was there in Calcutta. He was also a trained retinal surgeon. And Dr. Pava was supposed to be father of retinal surgery. All these people were doing only what they call a scleral buckling. Incidentally, Dr. Pava operated our Vaidyanathan's father, I think way back when he had a retinal detachment. I think, and apart from that, I think Namperumalsamy always you will hear, I think, I'm sure Chandran Abraham will be there. He's sitting there with Mary Abraham. So we are all co-founders of this hospital. So when we joined in 77 and all these conferences, you will hear the angiogram, etc., etc. The one will be Namperumalsamy and second will be Chandran Abraham, and of course Dr. Badrinath will be there for most of the retina symposium. And he has been getting awards after awards. I think Padma Shri is the ultimate. So I need not go through so much of his biodata, except to say that he was considered as the most influential person by Time, and such a popular magazine. And with this few words, I switch over to Mr. N. Ram. N. Ram is N. Ram because he has been associated with me for more than 3 decades. And Narasimhan Ram is an esteemed journalist, editor, and intellectual who has interacted with many of the prime ministers and presidents of the country, to name a few. And he actually received the Champion of Democracy Award recently, a few days back, and was the former editor-in-chief for the popular Hindu. I think my 72 years I have been remembering this Hindu and the morning coffee. Then only I think 1 and 2. Mr. Ram was held at the highest standards of journalist integrity and courage. So Dr. Badrinath spoke about the importance of building bridges between the different fields, medicine, journalism, and public service. Today we honor our chief guest and guest of honor, and we celebrate their shared commitment to the ideas what Dr. Badrinath had. Let us once again, after Prema's speech, I am nobody, so I think let us once again welcome these 2 giants and also all the luminaries in the audience. God bless. Thank you.
May I now request Dr. Prema to honor our chief guest? May I now request Dr. Surendran to honor our guest of honor, Mr. N. Ram?
Before I honor, I would like to mention that the memento which you are giving to the chief guest is actually a tribute to Dr. Badrinath, written by Dr. Prema Padmanabhan, Dr. Lingam Gopal, and Dr. Vijaya. So, the ophthalmologist also can write.
May I now request Dr. P. Namperumalsamy to address the gathering.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, distinguished the guest of honor, and the staff and organizers of this function, I will say. Thank you very much for considering me to come for this function, as Dr. Badrinath has been a close associate with me for more than half a century. 50 years is a long time to be associated. We are gathered here to honor and celebrate the life of a true remarkable individual. Remarkable in the sense not only for the service part of it, but also as a friend and the medical part of it. He dedicated the entire life in serving the humanity, not only for the regional, not only for the national, but also globally. That is what I admire him. And as already been told, we have been in the same institution in Boston, trained in the same institution, worked under the same mentor and the teacher and guide, Dr. Charles Keepens. Imbibed the same culture, work culture, which we can transmit to our people here. The whole purpose of our training in Boston under such a great person is to disseminate what we have learnt there, to give it to our people who are aspiring for their experts, and the same service will be given to our people also. That is what very important to give. The time when he was here, where this specialty was not even exist, I will say, the retina specialist, only the cataracts and prescribing glasses were, and nobody was courageous enough to enter into this field because it is not monetarily benefit, but the only advantage he took it is to spread this extraordinary field. The benefit of his training, the benefit of our training should benefit our community, our people in India. And one more thing I have to say, that our mentor, Dr. Charles Keepens, put only one condition for foreign medical graduates who are trained under him. Please pledge me you will go back to your country of origin and serve your people. That is the promise we have to make. That is the promise we have to make. We both did, and that is what he came here for, serving the communities in 1970s. That is what he himself thinks that he was fortunate to get trained in Harvard under Dr. Keepens, Dr. Badrinath, and return to India to disseminate the knowledge. That is what, and translate the science with the same which he learned from his parents. And he is Dr. Charles Keepens. For those who have not seen, he was the inventor of so many instruments which was not known at that time. And the treatment, a new treatment, what was considered at that time for the separation of the retinal detachment surgery, was invented by him. The diagnosis by his instrument, and he was considered as father of modern retinal surgery. And you will be surprised to see this Dr. Keepens. This is his house in Boston. This house was given to him for $1 by a patient who benefited by his surgery. That is, and that kind of a thing from And he is the person who is coming there. He not only taught the science part of it, but also the physical fitness which is necessary to go through the hard work, and swimming in his own coat. And this is his wife. And we used to go, Badrinath and ourselves, we used to go to their house also. And he invented this indirect ophthalmoscope. That is the basic instrument which he invented for the diagnosis of retinal detachment, revolutionized the diagnosis treatment of retinal detachment. And this is what made him very popular. Not only that, the another thing is the inside out, the turning in of the operating table upside down and operating from below. That was another treatment for the giant retinal tear. That is another thing which Dr. Badrinath has done here. I have not done it, so I have to say my hats off to Dr. Badrinath for that. So he has done that surgery here. Not only he taught the science part of it, professionalism, teaching and training. Whatever you learn, it must be disseminated to the people, your colleagues and other people. And you should be perfect in everything, not satisfied with what you have done, but what others you expect, what the outcome should be. That should be the perfection part of it. And precision, all these things you imbibe without your own effort when you are working with him. That is what we learnt. We try to pass it on to our fellows and people who have been working with us. That is the biggest advantage. And always have a word Badrinath used to say, we can do it. When those people can do it, why don't we do it? In India, let us do it. Let us progress forwards. That is what his thing will be. He has been told he is a pioneer in ophthalmology. And retina vitreous, he is a visionary leader, and I have told you all. But this treatment should be given for everyone who have money, who don't have money, and affordable and accessible. They should not go back just because there's no money, it should not be returned. That is what his motive and other things are there. One thing we have to say, even though he is an expert in every aspect of it, but he concentrated one area which was not concentrated by anyone, the retinal detachment, posterior segment. He concentrated on it. And this is the words of Vivekananda. Take one thing, take one idea. The one idea, your life. Think of it. Dream of it. Live on that idea. Let the brain, muscles, nerves, everything will be on that. In spite of obstacles and other opportunities he fought for it. He made sure that he trained the hundreds and thousands of people all over the country. And now we have to say that Sankara Nethralaya fellows have got their own institutions, brand names spread all over the country. That is what the main thing, not only learning, but dissemination of knowledge and concentrate one area and perfection part of it. In spite of complex surgical specialty, technology expertise, and now Sankara Nethralaya has become one of the leading institutions. Our boss, Dr. Venkataswamy, used to say, the patient should come not for Dr. Namperumalsamy or not for Dr. Badrinath, not for Dr. Venkataswamy, but for Sankara Nethralaya or but for Arvind Hospital. What does it mean? You should make everybody who is coming under your treatment as Badrinath, as Namperumalsamy, so that is the way we have been working. We have to make them. We have to, sometimes somebody said that they used to scare us. Yes, we used to. Till they learn something, they have to, but we feel proud when they do excellent work other than us. That is what is more important. Equipped with cutting-edge technology, he never satisfied with what he has learned, but the excellent technology available elsewhere in the world, it should be in his hands. And we always have discussion, as Surendran has pointed out, whenever we have time, we used to talk about that. Wouldn't we have the equipments? Wouldn't we do equipment part of it? And professional expertise should be given with moral standards, ethical standards. All these things should have a brand name of the institution. That is the part. And now, the services, he doesn't satisfied with just technology part of it, but he had a spiritual background. That is what is more important than spiritual. This is what he showed also, but you will now hear the original voice of Dr. Badrinath.
How very fortunate we are to be born in India in the era of His Holiness Shri Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Swamigal, the 68th Pontiff of Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham. The Devattin Kural from the Nadamadum Devam led us in the path of Advaita Siddhanta to make us realize who we are. Aham Brahmasmi.
This is what he meant from the beginning. That means he has to follow the demand.
We named the hospital as Arvind Eye Hospital.
This is Arvind Eye Hospital, again the spiritual background.
Arvindo, who was a guide and teacher in spiritual field of work.
What we see with our limited vision are the outer aspects. And that is the least important part for any spiritual figure.
So if our work is approached from spiritual perspective, then it becomes the divine work. It's not our work. It's directed from above. So if in your actions you allow the divine force to work through you, you will accomplish things far greater than you might have imagined. That is the basis of developing both the institution, one based on Jayendra Saraswati Swamigal, the other based on Sri Aurobindo and the mother at Arvind Eye Hospital, where we have been trained by the same mentor and the leader with us. See, again, நம் புண்ணிய பூமியில் சேவை ஒன்றையே அடிப்படையாக கொண்டு பொது படைத்தவர்களுக்கும் இல்லாதவர்களுக்கும் தரமான சிகிச்சை அளிப்பதிலும் அதிலும் பொருள் இல்லாதவர்களுக்கு அதே தரமான சிகிச்சை எந்தவித வித்தியாசமும் இல்லாமல் என்ற நோக்கத்துடன் ஒரு மருத்துவமனை ஆரம்பிக்க வேண்டும். சொன்னது யாரும் இல்லை, சுவாமிகள். அதையே ஒரு தெய்வ வாக்காக கொண்டு அதையே வைத்து சங்கர நேத்ராலயாவை பிறப்பித்தவர் திரு பத்ரிநாத் அவர்கள். சங்கர நேத்ராலயா என்ற பெயரில் சங்கரா என்னும் சொல் எப்போதும் எனக்கும் என் சகோதர ஊழியர்களுக்கும் ஜகத்குரு ஸ்ரீ காஞ்சி காமக்கோடி பீடாதிபதி ஸ்ரீ ரங்கராச்சாரியன் அவர்களின் இறை மனப்பாங்குடன் கூடிய சேவை திட்டம் என்றும் அந்த ஆணையை நினைவுபடுத்தட்டும். அதை நினைவில் வைத்து கொண்டு சேவை செய்வோம். இது அவருடைய தாரக மந்திரம். அதுதான் இப்பயும் சங்கர நேத்ராலயாவோட பாடமாக இருக்கிறது. அதை பேசுகிறது. நம்பிக்கை வைத்தல், ஃபெய்த். இதில் ஃபெய்த் இருக்கிறவங்க கட்டாயம் இருக்கத்தான் செய்வாங்க. ஃபெய்த், மோர் ஃபெய்த். ஃபெய்த் இன் அவர் ஓன் பாசிபிலிட்டிஸ் ஃபர்ஸ்ட். நம்மளே நம்பணும். நம்மளேன்னா நம்ம வேறு ஒன்றும் கிடையாது. ஃபெய்த் இன் தி பவர் தட் இஸ் அட் ஒர்க் பிஹைண்ட் தி வீல். நம்ம பண்ணலை, யாரோ பண்ணுறாங்க, நம்ம ஒரு கருவியாக இருக்கோம். ஆஸ் அன் இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட் வி ஆர் டூயிங் இட். That is the same lesson we learned from Sri Aurobindo Ashram also. Faith in the work that is to be done. If you don't believe in the work, what is going to be done? Suppose the same detachment work and vitreous surgery, if you don't think, oh no, it's not possible, it will not flourish. you must have faith that we must be able to spread this to the other people. That is what we have been doing it. That is what we have been. One more thing I want to, it's a non-profit organization, Arvind, also, like Sankara Nethralaya. The foundation stone was laid by Dr. Charles Keepens, who was the mentor and teacher for us. He came in 1976 and laid the foundation stone. And not only that, he also came here for inauguration after 2 years. He came for inauguration. But his main purpose is you have to educate the people all over the country, and train the fellows. Train the fellows. He is there. He is teaching the fellows also. That is in Madurai, but the fellows who have been trained there, now they train others. So it's a multiple. Thousands and thousands of people have been trained in the same philosophy, principles of quite surgery which was not available at all in this country 30, 40 years ago. So now it is almost every other person is a specialist in retina surgeons and all. In our country we have a false belief that we don't have experts, but the thing is we have excellent surgeons, we have excellent infrastructure. The failure of the organizations to develop is just lack of managerial competence. And that is what we felt, both institutions felt. The bottom of the pyramid, Arthur C.K. Prahalad visited both the institutions and then discussed with all the people who are here, and then the pyramid, say bottom of the pyramid, they won't give you anything, but the apex of the pyramid, they will be able to give something, and middle portion is the point you have to concentrate, help as much as possible to help. So that C.K. Prahalad, management guru, also were our guru, not only the clinical part of it, management part of it. This is the bottom of the pyramid. We used to travel all over the country, all the leading institutions. And Surendranath already pointed, myself or Babu Rajendran or Chandran Abraham and Dr. Napal, there will be a handful of people who are full of this. But we go to the other areas. The basic thing is to spread the knowledge and disseminate this area. And we have been together in most of the conferences in the beginning. That is 30, 40 years ago. That is what it is. And then now it has developed things. Starting from indirect ophthalmoscopy, Chandranabham is here, he knows how struggle we had to start the indirect ophthalmoscope. This picture, now we used to exchange, both the institutions. We used to go and he used to come to our institution. See, he didn't have any ego or anything. He had strong belief of principles and philosophy of Dr. Venkatasamy. So recently, about 3 years ago, he invited me and my wife, Dr. Nachyar, to come and talk to the people here who are working in Sankara Nethralaya and elicit the response from them how best we can improve. You just see how magnanimous it is there. We spent one full day here and talked to them. And not only that, he has visited our institution in 24-year celebration, and because all these interactions not for personal role, but interact with them, how to develop this specialty, take this to the other people. That is what the most important thing is. This is what Surendran, this is the first vitreous surgery instrument to come to the country in 1974 to the government Rajaji hospital, where said Dr. Badrinath was not, at that time he had already come back, so he didn't have an exposure. but age didn't bother him. He traveled from Chennai to Madurai to learn about this vitreous surgery procedure with Golam payment. He is the one who taught, and we had only handful of people attending that conference, only 4 or 5, because that was not very popular. That is the thing now, but that was not felt. Vitreous surgery is very important at that time. So when we used to travel from one place to the other, as he said, he used to refer patients to Madurai. One of the things which you will be happy to know, in Ahmedabad, a patient was diagnosed to have vitreous hemorrhage, and he needed surgery for this instrument. This is not available elsewhere, only in Madurai. The patient is 94 years old. The patient cannot come. Patient was seen by Dr. Badrinath and Dr. Nagpal. So they suggested my name, recommended to the government of Gujarat, right to the government of Tamil Nadu, to send the patient equipment, airlift the equipment to Ahmedabad, did surgery there, is not for Ravi Shankar Maharaj, the close associate of our father of our nation. That is what it is. So a cross consultation also has helped a lot. And then, so these are all the things, not only nationally. We formed a Skipins International Society. We were the members, myself, and we used to travel to Paris or Rome or anywhere, and he is the mentor. He used to come there and teach us. There's again interaction. What is available there in the other country, we can take it back here. Dr. Badrinath is there now here, Hong Kong, 1993. We were there too in Shanghai. And you can see here, myself is there, my wife is there, just opposite Vasanti Badrinath is there. And others, sorry for the poor film, but because it's only 50 years old. So these are the way in which we developed this specialty. Dr. Badrinath is solely responsible for bringing the posterior segment surgery into the field and promoting this kind of. We will, again, another secret, we are of the same age. Same age, same year born, all 3 of us with Badrinath, myself and Dr. Nagpal, 3 of us. They celebrated 75 years old when we were old in VRSI in Nagpur. And that is the picture which they suggested, and that is the thing which is, so these are all the things, very rare opportunities what we had. He deserves this kind of recognition. He brought this field into limelight in our country, spreading with the spirituality and technical know-how and everything. And this is, once he determines, he goes to any extent, he has to do. And he will develop confidence. And we have to follow him. So that is Badrinath. We always also fight, madam. We used to, in the conferences meeting also, that is what healthy discussions, healthy thing to develop how best we could. So with this, I just want to say that this is not the end of it. What youngsters and we, all of us, have to follow what he stood for. And it is not the end of this science at all. Anything else will come. Artificial intelligence is coming in a long way. Again, it will come some extent or not. So I will say that I take this service. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this memorable occasion. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. PN, for that wonderful speech. You brought a different aspect of chief into spiritual aspect into this meeting. And may I now request Mr. Anram to address the gathering.
Dr. Surendran, Chairman of Sankara Nethralaya, Chief Guest, Dr. Namperumalsamy, Chairman Emeritus Arvind Eye Care System, friends from Sankara Nethralaya, supporters and outside. First, I would like to congratulate Sankara Nethralaya, the chairman, and the team, the senior team, for the excellent choice of chief guest. It was an inspiring address, but it also represents two models that everyone should learn from. Two models of not-for-profit ventures started decades ago, both making a huge difference to the state of eye care in this country, founded by iconic figures. One of them is alive, of the three, and amazingly being able to sustain itself both in terms of quality and impact and scale over such a long period. I think that is a considerable achievement. Dr. Badrinath and Dr. Namperumalsamy are iconic figures in the field of eye care, not only in India, but they have made an international mark. And the Arvind eye care hospitals and the Arvind eye care system have been the subject of case studies of this. I was surprised to learn, in fact astonished to learn, that the Arvind system derives only 7% or so of its operating expenses are met from donations, and the rest is self-sustaining. So far as Sankara Nethralaya is concerned, I think it's about 1/6. I want to before I move on to Dr. Badrinath and my acquaintance and friendship with him over several decades, let me congratulate Dr. Surendran and the team for carrying on the transition from one kind of management where a towering figure, the founder, was around and inspired everybody. We know of many institutions where great people have been around and made an impact, but after them, there's a huge problem because succession has been not planned properly or not thought of, or for some reason, it doesn't become a success. But here, I don't think Dr. Surendran wants to reveal the kind of support, financial support that they have received, because there'll be an apprehension that it'll stop coming if you give all that. But I want to congratulate Sankara Nethralaya and this team and this leadership for outstanding work in collecting donations and establishing a corpus after a difficult period. I don't know the figures and so on, but this is a considerable achievement. And also the management style is something to be emulated. I watched Dr. Surendran carefully and the respect. Earlier there was a towering figure and everyone else was in awe of him. But now I think it's a much more even field with various strengths being recognized and everybody being treated in the same way. And that's a great achievement. But coming to Dr. Badrinath, I just want to mention my own experiences with him to illustrate his professionalism and generosity of spirit. The mother of, this was in 1978, I remember, I checked with my friend. The mother of this friend had lost an eye in a golfing accident in Kathmandu. A prosthesis had been done. People had heard of Dr. Badrinath, who was then working in Vijaya Hospital with his team, including Dr. Surendran. And my friend sent me the relevant papers. I got an introduction to Dr. Badrinath, who had earlier worked in BHS and then in HM Hospital. So I got an introduction, went to see him, and after studying the papers, he informed me that the doctors in Nepal had done as good a job as his team or anyone anywhere could have done. This may have been a simple thing at that point, but I immediately noted this difference, because many would try to find fault or to communicate their superiority and so on, but this is Nepal, a completely unknown team of doctors, looking at the papers. The second incident I'd like to mention was the chief minister of a major state had come to Sankara Nethralaya to see Dr. Badrinath, and I had accompanied the chief minister, whom I knew pretty well. After the consultation and conversation was over, and as to Dr. Badrinath was seeing the CM off, a fairly large number of patients from the CM state came to greet him. They conveyed first their appreciation of the eye care, the excellence and sincerity of the eye care that they got here, and contrasted it with making some complaints about the state of eye care and the attitude of doctors and others in their state. The CM listened patiently and seriously, but I noticed that Dr. Badrinath was quite irritated. He was not at all pleased. He chided them, saying that the doctors in their home state were equally competent. May not have been completely true, but that was Dr. Badrinath. It was unfair to make this comparison. Again, I noted this integrity, this professional integrity, and a certain humility that came out of this. The third incident was the Hindu had a very famous political correspondent. I don't want to name patients here. And I brought him here. We made the appointment with Dr. Badrinath, and he came here in the 1980s. Cancer was detected here. But more than that, this very senior journalist, was a nationally known figure, told me this story about how an auto rickshaw driver was being examined next to him, and he was amazed that Dr. Badrinath gave the same attention and the same concentration that he gave to him, and this impressed him and moved him greatly. And I was looking through this book that was just given to us. A wonderful book with great pictures and very simple text, but meaningful text. And I want to compliment the authors for this book. I've read half of it so far, but I came across this part, Composed Concentration of a Yogi. It says, and then it took me back to, I immediately connected with what this journalist had told me, who had worked for the Hindu. And I quote, "Watching him operate was like watching Michelangelo at work, his deft fingers obeying a steady singularity of purpose with the composed concentration of a yogi." I think that's been very well put here. So you had, I think, what strikes us is two institutions started with in Tamil Nadu with comparable but somewhat different inspiration. It took inspiration, spiritual inspiration, from two different sources, if you like, but both were committed to the idea of a sustainable model, scalable also, but would operate on a not-for-profit basis, which really means not-for-profit sharing basis. The money wouldn't be taken out. Nobody objects to making a profit, but you can't share it out or siphon it out. And we are greatly inspired by the example. I must mention Arvind first, because you started 2 years earlier than Sankara Nethralaya. And Sankara Nethralaya, I think these are magnificent examples. Very few such institutions in the world. In India, certainly, there are some more. But nothing that I can think of that has made such a difference to the state of eye care and to so many I don't know how many lakhs, I won't speculate on that, but many hundreds of thousands of patients, maybe even millions, I don't know, who come here And I'm witness to the fact that when there is complicated surgery, the other day it happened, a young man suddenly had a retinal tear. I asked Dr. Surendran, in the spirit of Dr. Badrinath, he said, I won't name people, so-and-so in Delhi, equally good, he trained here, he's one of the best in the country, because they wanted to come to Chennai, it was risky to fly, they said. So that is the spirit that I really admire, and I think people should emulate, instead of competitive jealousy and putting people down. As long as it's true, as long as the standards are maintained, I think this is something we can learn from. Finally, I'd like to say that I've had many interactions with doctors here, brought people here, because they always, they like to get introduced or go to the right person in the right institution. But I'm happy to say, to report, that I'm yet to enter Sankara Nethralaya as a patient. And I'm sure the day will come. But thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ram, for that completely different take on Chief. And may I now request our Director Academics, Dr. Smita Vittal, to propose the vote of thanks.
So, thank you, Sumita. And while many of us have treasured memories of our associations with Dr. S.S. Badrinath, contextualizing them and presenting it to an audience can be a daunting task. But the talks that we've heard today have been by turn enlightening, fascinating, and nostalgic. So thank you so very much, Dr. Namperumalsamy and Shri Ram. Thank you also, Dr. Surendran, for regaling us with anecdotes as always, and your really warm words of welcome, Dr. Prema. Thank you to all of you in the audience. Your presence here has added special meaning to the proceedings. Thank you to our behind-the-scenes folks, multimedia and housekeeping crew. The work that you do is sincerely appreciated. And finally, for all the youngsters here, some of you might find it difficult or struggle to identify with today's theme. But remember that we are all the beneficiaries of the talent and vision of Dr. Badrinath. So, yes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So I hope you will use some of his ideals and let them guide you as you move into your beautiful futures. So thank you once again and good night.
May I request all of you to stand for National Anthem? There is a high tea. Please, Chief would have loved you if you all had eaten and gone. So please.